Good afternoon. Welcome. You're listening to Men, Family, and Education Under Fire with Dr. Horace Williams on the Go radio station, powering the voice of community and change. And as you see with me this evening, I have a special guest. Yo Eddings.
From out of town.
Yeah, thank you, Yo, from out of town.
You know I ain't out of town.
No, that's all right. Sometimes out of town is not bad.
Traveling.
Well, it's a pleasure to come to you this afternoon, listeners. We are going to get right on point this evening. I'm going to say this evening's show is going to be a very, very specific show. We're going to continue with our 4-part series of building trust in relationships after you have been deceived or after you have been betrayed. Tonight, we're going to talk specifically to the men and women. So if you have a spouse that you think can benefit from this conversation, if you have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, or just someone that you like to share hot topics with. Last week, the topic was so hot. I laid the foundation for building trust in relationships. So this week that we could get back to it, and we're going to finish this up because our show's objective is to transfer knowledge by way of positive communication, teaching, and mentoring. So before we get started, I'm going to give our disclaimer. We're not placing blame.
No.
We're just taking more responsibility. It's just about taking responsibility. So tonight we're going to talk about, if you didn't listen to the show last week, I'm going to challenge you to go and listen to the show so you can get more information or more background on this topic and this discussion. So tonight we're going to talk specifically to the men and women out there in listener land. So we'll give you a couple minutes to go to call someone or tell them to watch us because we're on. And tonight we're going to talk about building a trusted relationship. So we all know, Yolanda, that last week when I discussed it, I said, and I referenced what Chris Rock says in some of his comedic ventures. When you first meet a person, you're not meeting the real person. You are meeting their representative. So today, what we want to talk about, myself and Yo, we're going to talk directly to the men. She's going to talk to the young ladies or the women, and we're going to go back and forth. So we're going to start off like this, Yo. Why do you think, or what are some of the signs that women use when they're deceiving a man when they first meet him? So we out. I'll set the scene. We out. I'm not going to say a club.
Now, you know I don't know firsthand, but
about
the
woman,
life
you
of
qualify.
deception.
Absolutely. Okay, that's
but
right.
I'm around enough because
talk to
I don't
us.
have time to be playing games with people. But I
talk
have enough people that I know of that I know I don't spend time with because they are deceivers.
Okay.
A friend of mine, her and I, when we talk about people, we call them busters. And it's not just male busters out there. It's some female busters out there, too, who are imposters. And that's what you're talking about. Ooh. So I know about a lot of imposters. I do I know.
Imposters out there.
I just do my best not to hang out with them, but I also learn lessons from them about what not. Because, you know, Doc, at the end of the day, all of the lies catch up with you.
Yes, at some point.
They're going to catch up with you. So even if you get hooked into this relationship and your buster moves and your imposter life drew the person, you got to be able to live up to it. So at some point, it's almost like the Wizard of Oz. You see what's behind the green curtain.
What's behind the green curtain?
Go ahead, though.
And eventually it's going to get pulled away. So, you know, I just want the fellas to know. And then I'm going to speak to some of the women about what men do when they're trying to deceive a woman when they first meet her. So give me a couple of things. So what would a woman do normally if she wants to deceive a man about herself or whatever's going on? Just give me a couple of examples. What would you say?
And I think it starts
just
with...
Be honest as you can about it. Because we need to help somebody today. Somebody's listening needs this information today.
And I think it starts with deceiving themselves.
Correct. Absolutely.
You know, because if you walk out the house and you're living this imposter life, the deception is to yourself before it is to anybody. You know, you're not just deceiving yourself, but you deceive your family members, and not being somebody who you really are. You're deceiving your friends, whether they're male or female. So I think the first level of deception is to themselves. So people deceive themselves, females specifically. Sometimes they will, I've seen, I came from the era where my dad taught me to pay my bills before I go shopping.
Okay.
Now I'm just keeping it real. That's why I said some of this I know from, I'm a people watcher.
Okay, absolutely.
You know, I was sharing with some people earlier. I said I'm an introvert. I actually listen more than I do talk. So a lot of what I have conversations about is not necessarily things that I've had to live, but I watch, you know, so I don't make the same mistakes. But, you know, he taught me to pay my bills before I shop. But I know a lot of women, Doc, who live this life of deception, and they're wearing everything they make.
Everything out.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a big deal to them, you know, and I'm trying not to go the second layer deep, because the deception to yourself is because there's something you're trying to be that you haven't become yet.
Absolutely.
And so you're wearing everything you make, literally. You know, you barely got gas in the car, but your shoes cost $200. Your suit costs this amount. You got, and I
more than what
now don't get it twisted.
I understand.
I don't have no problem with looking good, but if it comes to the cost of you being able to sustain the life that you're trying to give the image of, something is wrong. And so you have a lot of people, and a lot of women specifically, who will wear it, but that's not who they really are.
That's not who they
are. And so I always tell the men, you have to look past the looking good, and you have to get to the point to find out if she really feels good about herself.
Absolutely.
Because people know how to dress up pain well.
Oh,
like they professionals. Women are professionals at dressing up some pain.
I agree with you, and men too. So I'm not going to give away so much of the show, but you've hit on some key points here, and I want to say this. Number one, absolutely, before you deceive someone else, and last week we talked about betrayal. Before somebody betrays you, they first must betray themselves. I want you to know that. I have to lie to myself before I can lie to you.
And believe it.
Because I'm the one telling the lie, so I have to convince myself of some truth. So that's pretty good. So let's look at it. Ladies, coming from a man's perspective, these are some of the things I want you to look out for when you meet a male person out there in any venue, when he starts to talk about what he has, his possessions, where he's been, you know, and started to name drop when that's not necessary for this conversation. And we have to be aware, and ladies, we're going to talk about a little later as to when you run into these gentlemen, you have to ask yourself something. Well, what am I looking for in a man? And all the time when you're out, you know, I say relationship, even love, doesn't come when you readily want it. It's kind of unexpected sometimes.
That's right.
So we have to be very cautious as to how we represent ourselves. But there are some other signs too. You know, like you said with the ladies, and I, you know, as a gentleman, I like to dress. I am vested in my wardrobe. But what I've learned is just because it's shining, everything shining ain't gold. Everything shining ain't gold. So there's things that we have to look at when we meet each other. You have to ask yourself, what am I looking for? But that's good. We're going to start off there. But let me talk about some foundations and some skills, because this show is based upon helping folks, giving us some tools and techniques to use in relationships. And again, this is building trusting relationships, this topic. And the key word is trusting. You can build a relationship, you know, but is it trusting? So let's look at some key skills. Number one, truth has to be part of that skill set. You have to go in thinking about, how truthful can I be? Respect. First of all, you have to respect yourself. And we're going to get into that a little more. The ability to speak up. Sometimes, you know, it's good to be a good listener. It's good to be, but if somebody tells you water is dry, and they continue that conversation, you have to speak up and say, based on my knowledge my years on this earth, water's been wet. It was wet yesterday. It was wet 2 days ago. It was wet 2 months ago, 2 years ago. So you telling me water is dry, I'm not tending to believe that unless we're dealing with dry ice, and that's a scientific thing, but I'm going to go on. The next one, empowerment. I like to have conversations when I'm meeting people to help empower them to learn things. So that's one of the skill sets that you have to understand in building a relationship. It shouldn't be all about you. It should be to empower others. Vulnerability. When you're looking to a new relationship, there's a certain amount of vulnerability that you have to subject yourself to. And if not, then you are beginning to tell that lie to yourself, deceive yourself. Listening. You have to develop listening skills. That's on both sides of the fence, men and women. Listening. Love. I'm not saying you have to fall in love with somebody, but you also have to have the ability to love. And you should look for that.
That's right.
You should look for that in a conversation, some signs that this person has the ability to love. Now, so why are we giving you these skills? Why are we talking about that? Yo, the first thing I want to say is this, and I wrote this down. People need to have options. When you're meeting someone for the first time, I wouldn't suggest that you look for your soulmate right then and there, but you don't know. But I'm going to tell you that we need options, male and female. Give the person that you are corresponding with the option to like you or not like you, or that's vice versa. And that's kind of deep, yo, because sometimes people tend to get into this space where, I know I'm looking good. Everybody say I'm fine. Well, people say I'm handsome. I know no, not everybody. But give the person the benefit of the doubt. Get to know people. Get to know where they are before you call yourself falling in love.
Wow.
People are at different places when you meet them in their lives, yo. I'm going to drop.
Wow.
Hello.
That's good. That's good.
Remember, people, we are all at different places.
That's good.
When we're looking to meet people in our lives.
That's good.
And sometimes, yo, we get to the point where we don't want to honor people where they are because we're looking at this or their representative, not saying, okay, that's a good start, but let's go one layer deeper. Because we come in with different experiences, different resources, and the other side of getting to know people a little better before you use the L word, the love word, is you may come to find out that you don't like where they are in their life. You may say, I've been there, done that, don't want to be there. But you got to give that chance to manifest.
Wow. And
I'm thinking that it's all right to get to know somebody. Now, I'll tell you there are some exceptions, and I fall in this category. And I know before I was married, when I was single, I did not believe in love at first sight, yo. I didn't believe in that.
I remember you telling me that.
Yo, I didn't believe in it.
Yeah, share that.
I'm out doing my thing. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, how you doing? What's going on? But when I met my wife, I wasn't looking to meet her.
Wow.
And we met in an environment where there was a party going on, and at that time, we both didn't want to be there. I found myself being drawn to this corner of the room, and just so happened she was there. And I asked her, excuse me, can I sit down? It was innocent.
Wow.
And I found that after about 2 or 3 hours, the party was almost over, and we hadn't gotten up and danced. We just enjoyed the conversation. And at that point, I knew that I had met my wife. I told my friend that, he laughed at me. But my point being is this. It can happen, but you have to know what you're looking for.
That's right.
And this is a question, yo, that I want to pose to some people out here. When you meet people, and I was just sharing with you earlier, a gentleman and I had a conversation. He said, well, and there's some misconceptions about, and I'm not going to use some of the negative terms they call women. And you hear them, she's a gold digger. Well, not necessarily. Not if she's telling you what she want up front. and you agree to it, oh, he a buster. He ain't got, well, not necessarily. Not if he's explaining to you what he's all about and you accept that.
Ha.
The key word is you accept it.
If you know he a buster and you good with it, I mean,
and you good with it.
You telling him you like busters.
I like busters. And if you think she's a gold digger and you
telling her that all I want is a superficial relationship.
Man, you can roll together. It's all right with that.
And if you just want somebody who look good,
be careful. Woo! Be careful when you want somebody to look good. You. But you have to be honest.
Yes.
I think we have to learn to be more honest and more trusting. And last week's show, we talked about building trust in relationships. We talked about that God-given clue that he's put in all of us called intuition. Use your intuition. You know when things aren't right.
Can I ask you, you mentioned earlier, Doc, about information and about water being dry and somebody trying to convince you of that.
Yep.
Yeah, wet. I'm sorry. Okay. And one of the things that crossed my mind is, you know, you asked about how you know when a man is lying to you and all of that, and or deceiving you. And I think that's probably one of the first things. If in your past life, in relationships, you've gone through enough that when that feeling comes up, I always tell people, trust your instincts.
Trust your instincts.
You know, if everything in front of you is saying one thing, but you keep getting this feeling, it's something completely different from what's in front of you. Trust your instincts. Now, there's a place and a time for that. I'm not saying that you assume everybody is lying to you because you've been in relationships in the past where people have lied to you. It's not fair for the ones that's going to come after them.
Absolutely.
That they're not given an opportunity to love you and or to be in a transparent relationship with you.
That's that vulnerability.
And do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like, it's kind of hard because there are more people out there that's not authentic and not true than it is people who are. And so a lot of times your assumptions come from your past experiences.
Absolutely.
But you have to be very careful not to miss the blessing that God's going to put in front of you, because you already put them and wrapped them up in the lie of the coat of lies that everybody else before them wore. And you can't miss your blessing because you got burnt one time, 2 times, 3 times. It might be 4 times. And, you know, the other piece I would add to that too, Doc, is that sometimes people got burnt that many times because they weren't willing to wait.
They weren't willing to wait.
We got to be careful about being anxious and so quick to just take an imposter instead of waiting for the real deal to come forth. Because if the imposter's always in place, you'll never get to see the real deal.
You have to have patience.
And they won't see you because they'll assume because you always with somebody, you with somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yo, when you
I'm really pulling back.
No. I know you are, but we want to talk about it because we have to talk about this thing. Because if you want to build, you can build trusting relationships. There's folks out there that you can get into relationships with, but you have to be careful.
And you also have to be willing to tell the truth. Sometimes
truth.
You draw what you are. If you want real people, be real with other people. We draw sometimes what we are.
Yes.
You know, a lot of imposters love to hang around other people who just want to look the part and act like they live in it, but they're not really in it. And you see it in the workplace. You see it in churches. And you see it out in the community. There are a lot of people who want to look at, and I'm not talking about clothes at this point, or how you dress, or how you do your hair, and all that. I'm talking about you attract what you are.
You attract what you are. And you know what? It comes to you. Some of those things, I see and I remember, it's out of fear. See, we can't be honest. You said something about telling the truth. That was my first skill set that I said that we have to learn to do. You have to tell the truth about a lot of things to the point where you feel comfortable. But with that being said, you go into our next point. So let's look at some stuff that we shouldn't do. And I want you to talk from a woman's perspective to the brothers. Brothers, this is some things that you shouldn't do on a date, your first date or your first early relationships with a woman. So, give us some perspective from a female's perspective. What are some of the things that turn women off in a first date situation or first couple date situation that men do that they shouldn't do? And we're going to follow that up, and I'm going to tell you something about what I think that women do that.
He's so polite. He going to let me do the guys first.
Yep.
Because I'm his guest.
Absolutely.
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
So I will say first off, Doc, is that when, just so the guys know, when you do it, she may not always show that it pissed her off.
Okay.
So you may not, if she doesn't, this is really important to say this.
Observant, fellas.
Because you're under the assumption because you got away with this the other 2 or 3 times with somebody else, it's acceptable. And then when someone check you on it, you're going to be like, she too uptight, or it ain't that serious, because nobody else bothered to respect you enough to say you offended me.
Okay.
You know, I'm very
speak up.
That's why I said a lot of this I have to like not even make myself a part of it, because the one thing I also realize is that sometimes people are challenged when you care enough about a relationship. I'm not even saying we booze. I'm just saying I care enough that we're spending time together at this moment to tell you the truth, because I value the fact you spent your time with me today. But a lot of people aren't ready for that type of conversation. So the one thing that I've seen, and I've heard people talk about this afterwards, is beware, gentlemen. I don't care how open she appears to be. I don't care how, she telling you all of the people who she talked to, been with, and all of that. Women do not like to be compared to someone else. Let y'all just stay there for a minute. Pencil. So out of all that openness and y'all sharing information, going back and forth, I talked to somebody, I dated somebody, my wife was this, my husband was this. Let her be chatty and just learn from what she's sharing. But women do not like to be compared to someone else. It's no different, and now you all will be able to align yourselves with this, than a basketball player being traded from one team to the other. He get on a different team and he want to talk about his other teammates.
Right, that's a no.
Now, did all y'all feel something?
That's a no. Yeah, that's a
because the teammates is looking like, dude, really? You on our team now? You wearing our jerseys? What's going on?
Yeah, what's up with that?
My point exactly.
What's up with that?
So just like people were able to immediately emotionally connect to that piece.
Yes.
I don't care how everybody on the team like, yeah, dude, I remember watching you play with that team. Yeah, y'all had good camaraderie. Everybody seemed like they all on board with it. But at the end of the day, when they're in the locker room, they like, he ain't even invested with us yet. We paying him all this money. He still ain't. And the women think the same way. I don't want to hear about nobody else. And if you want to talk about it, that's fine, but don't do no comparisons.
Absolutely.
Because this the team you playing on right now. How well you going to play on this team?
Absolutely. And gentlemen.
Because if we going to win, we got to be on the same page.
I want you to take heed to that. And that's coming from a woman. And
in the way they can understand it.
A real woman that's going to tell you how it is, the way you can understand it.
You ready for number 2?
Now let me, you got number 2?
Yeah.
Come on in. Come on with number 2.
I only got like, they real quick.
Hit me with them.
So write notes so you don't forget, because you might want to rebuttal some of this.
Okay, no.
Am I good so far?
You good. You on point.
Am I telling the truth?
I'm dropping the
pencil ready?
So much. Yeah,
okay.
Hit me with the next.
The next one is people say, well, I didn't lie about it. So let me be real clear about what a lie is.
Men, we're talking to you. Listen.
Women hate to be lied to. And if you got somebody that don't mind lies, that's because she a liar.
Joe, can I drop the
you
the
can
pen
throw that one.
You said
women, and I can only attest to the ones because I'm around real G's. I'm not around
absolutely. Let's talk
chicks that ain't for real and they not really trying to live a quality life and also treat people right and be treated right. Women do not like to be lied to, because once you lie to us, we always under the assumption you lying. Women bruise easily. So this is what's interesting, Doc, and I'm almost done. We appear to be very strong. We are very resilient. We're very, we're there. We always gonna have your back. We're made to be.
Right.
It's in our DNA to catch dropping balls as they are dropping. It's in our DNA to catch things when they're falling apart and pull it together and pick up and keep on doing and helping But when you lie to us, when we go to catch that ball you dropped,
that changes
the first thing we think is, he telling the truth. Is it worth it? Why would I do this? And so then when the lie gets corrected, it takes time to build trust over the relationship to think that you're not lying to me every time you open up your little mouth. I'm sorry. It got real personal.
Right. It got personal right there, but that's fine. Yo, I'm feeling you.
And when you're not telling everything, you are lying. Because when you holding stuff, holding it is just like lying.
Or you being deceptive.
So deception and lying kind of runs, they sleeping together.
Come on.
So the last one, and I'm going to leave it alone.
Okay.
Is when someone does not respect your values or what's important to you. You know, again,
and don't make
I'm being honest with you. Old girl might be real quiet.
Yep.
She might be acting like it's all acceptable and she's good with the fact you cussing her out and cussing her friends out and talking about her mama, her daddy, and her kids. Now, I'm going to stay there for a minute.
Okay.
Because some women may not say it to you. You know, don't say that and don't talk like that in front of my kids. But don't think they're not thinking it. Now, if they tolerate it and permit it, that's because, remember I told you in the very beginning of this conversation, if I can't be truthful with myself, I'm not truthful with whoever I'm talking to or where I'm at. But if I'm truthful with myself that you can't talk and carry yourself any kind of way in front of my kids, in front of my family, in front of my friends, when we're out, you know, that holds true to everything. So, again, when you don't respect their values and what's important to them, they may not say it, but you basically just talked yourself out of anything.
And that's good.
Y'all know what I'm talking about.
And I'm going to add this one on to that, because I think that sometimes men, we tend to look at women the way they're dressed. If they're dressed provocative, that means something about it. Maybe this
don't
way.
Mean nothing. Some people just like to look good for themselves.
Some people just like to look good for themselves. But, I appreciate that. So, women, I'm going to talk directly to the women. These are some of the things that
put your glasses on. Put your glasses on.
I want to make sure this. So women, and I want to talk to you. This is to help you, okay? From a man's perspective, women, always present yourself in a classy and the best way that you can. Always present yourself. So even when you're out, make sure you're mindful of your speech, the way you're talking. Now, if you're running with a guy that you speak the same jargon, that's acceptable. But always be mindful of your audience, and that's with the person that you're with. Number one. Number two, never dump all your problems or your past history on the first time that you meet somebody. Don't do that. Don't tell them about, especially if the relationship went wrong, that turns men off. Number three, be honest. If you're asked a certain question, be honest as you possibly can, because you're not going to make a life with somebody the first date, but you can lose them on the first date. I'm going to drop the pin on that. You're not going to make a life with somebody on the first date. You can lose them on the first date. And somebody may say, Doc, I heard you say
already
you had
planning
love
the
at first
wedding.
sight. I already planned the wedding. Doc, you say love at first sight, you didn't believe in it, but I met my wife the first time, but it took us 4 years to get married. 4 years after that, but I knew she was going to be my wife. Number four, don't talk about the past relationship and your ex in a negative way, because the first thing the man going to say, man, if this don't go well, she going to dog me out, especially with the social media piece right now. People will go in the bathroom and they will jack you up on social media before you leave the bar. You will be out there going, wait a minute, who is this fool? He was like, I'm out here with a clown, right? Stay positive. Wait be patient enough to wait the whole date out. Don't go in there thinking that, okay, I done laid it down, man. I done put it down so good. Nope. That she's willing to, I'm not looking for love on the first date. Don't look for love on the first date. Get to know somebody.
Don't look for love, but don't look for the loving on that first date.
Don't look for the loving on the first date.
That's what he said to y'all.
And sisters, I know that you're out there. Some of the sisters being aggressive, like, that's been working for me in the past. Or, I don't know, I have to ask you about your relationship. Is it a lasting relationship? But I'm going to say, and be careful about lying, because, folks, there's so many ways that people can get information on you right now.
It's a small world out there, too.
They can go and they can Google you. They can look at your Twitter, your Facebook. They can lurk on your account. They can put up phony books, phony pages, a lot of things. But building trusting relationships are around these key words: truth, respect, the ability to speak up, empowerment, vulnerability, listening skills, and love. So hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, tonight you found this discussion very interesting. I did, presenting it. This is part 2 of the series, Building Trusting Relationships When You've Been Betrayed. I'd like to thank you for your comments today. hopefully we've been able to help someone.
I love your show.
Some people, thank you so much.
I do.
Some people say, oh, we knew that. Well, if you know that, do better. So at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, we love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Again, you're listening to Men, Family, and Education Under Fire with Dr. Horace Williams on the Go Radio station, powering the voice of community and change. And my host, Yo Eddings. We want to thank you and stay tuned for part 3.
Good stuff.
Which is going to talk about spirituality, building trusted relationships when you've been betrayed by someone that's a Christian.
Share it with somebody else.
Share it with somebody.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Thank you so much, and we love you. Don't change that dial. We'll be back at you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.